Big Ten pre-preview week. And the best part about this is we get to preview the reigning national champion. But Will, I just got some very, very exciting news, and I want you to hear about this.
What could this be?
My wife's going out of town the weekend of the very first college football season. The very first weekend. The whole weekend. She's going to be gone. So Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, by myself. Don't have
What are you going to do?
deal with anything. Well, I have a pool. I'm pretty sure that I'm going to set up a projector and watch the Saturday night game between LSU and Clemson from my pool.
Jake, I am very envious of you. Looks like I should be going to Columbia for week 1. Yes, this is what dreams are made of. Congratulations. I would be happy for you, but you know what? I'm very jealous, so I'm not happy for you anymore. That you can't beat that. You're going to have a couple beers. You're probably going to have the boys over. You're going to have the TV on. It's going to be a beautiful
the
night.
smoker's going to be going. It's going to be. We're going to have some chicken wings. We're going to be making some pulled pork, some brisket. The options are there because it's not just watching football on Saturday. We've got Thursday night, we've got Friday night, we've got Saturday, and then we've got a Sunday night game too.
Who's Sunday night? Oh, that's South Carolina and Virginia Tech, right?
Yeah. Is that South Carolina, Virginia Tech? I know there's always a Sunday night game, and then we always have a Monday night then as well. So I don't know who it is, but it's going to be a great time because the smokers will be going. We're going to have college football. So I can absolutely taste it, and I can feel the season coming.
I'm envious. You know what I'm going to be doing on the first day of college football?
What are you doing?
Begging and pleading my wife, please let me and the kids, this is a bonding experience, watch game day, and let me not move from the couch all day. I will lose that fight, but I will fight it for you.
Sunday, we have Virginia Tech and South Carolina at 3. And then Notre Dame and Miami at 7:30. And then Monday, we've got TCU and North Carolina. So Bill Belichick on Monday night. He's used to playing on Monday nights, if we're being honest.
No, you might have lost me. I just lost power for a second.
You're still there. I got you.
Okay.
But
I'm Monday trying to take it, because I'm so envious of your weekend.
Monday night, we have Bill Belichick hosting TCU, which A, is a very weird matchup, but B, Bill Belichick definitely used to playing on Monday Night Football.
Yeah, how fitting, but not night games. Not night games. Maybe Jordan can keep him awake.
Monday night is football. Monday Night Football.
No. But it's night games. He's getting a little long in the tooth. But maybe his young girlfriend can help revitalize his energy and keep him up and going. Yeah. That didn't come out the right way. I didn't mean up and going that way. I meant let's just move on, Jake.
Let's move on. Not a ton of news to cover recently. I don't know if there's anything that really sparked your interest lately, but I think we should just jump right into talking about the Big Ten. I don't really want to waste time talking about any of these random. I will take Ohio State officially offered Jeremiah Smith's brother. They've also offered Marvin Harrison Jr.'s brother. So Ohio State has now determined that they're just going to hit the bloodlines. Like, why even look at anybody else? Just hit the bloodlines of your best wide receivers ever, and you're going to be fine.
Put this on the internet so we can get trademark rights. An Ohio State Bloodlines Family Tree T-shirt with Jeremiah Smith, Marvin Harrison Jr., their brothers. There's got to be other relatives that have played wide receiver for Ohio State.
They just
put them all on there.
They just offered Quincy Porter's an incoming freshman. They just offered his brother too.
Yeah, this is not fair. Y'all get too many freaking wide receivers.
They have actually figured out the cheat code. You just offer the brother, and you hope he has close to the athletic ability. Because even if Jeremiah Smith's brother isn't that, we're good.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so let's jump into the Big Ten pre-preview here.
Yeah, if we want to get these done, we're definitely going to jump in. How many teams are in the Big Ten now? 94?
Yeah, feels like it. We got 18 teams here. Last week, we did the ACC, which felt forever, but it was 17 teams. We actually have one more team in this one. So if you missed last week, Will and I went and ranked our teams 1 through 18. I mean, this is not some exact science. This is not the preview. The preview will come out later. This is one thing that we like and one thing that we dislike about every team. We have them ranked. Our rankings might change. We have not dug into every single aspect of these teams yet, but we combine our rankings to give us what we think it's going to be. Yep. So without further ado, the team tied for last that we have Purdue. So I had Purdue at 18. Will had Purdue at 17.
Hey, and no spoilers. Honestly, I probably should have had Purdue at 18. I think having them at 18, like I'm cool with them being at 18. We not only match in our rankings in the last two, we match in what we like and dislike. So, but no spoilers. I don't want to give anything away.
Yeah, what we like about Purdue, we like the hire of Barry Odom. I think that's a genuinely good hire. We saw what he did at UNLV. UNLV is not an easy place to win. And Purdue, same thing, is probably one of the harder Power 5 jobs. I said that Boston College was one of the hardest, and I found out that Boston College has a very loyal fan base and came after me last week.
See, but the thing is, and I'm gonna double down. I've met Purdue fans. I still to this day have never met. I've seen them online now. Lord have mercy, I've seen them online, but I've never met one in person. So
I had a Purdue fan once tell me that Purdue versus Notre Dame was a top 5 rivalry in college football.
Absolutely, everybody knows about that. Who could forget that rivalry?
I don't know if he was not sober. I will say that.
Everybody knows what the rivalry is called too. For the people who don't know, you want to tell them what it's called?
The Indiana thing.
Yeah.
Just like everybody knows that. But yeah, we like the hire of Barry Odom. What I don't like, and I'll let you put this in your own words, is the team was rated. They had so many players that I believe they lost over 50 transfers this past year. They brought in 40 transfers, but you lost guys like Dylan Thieneman to Oregon. You lost guys like a guy like Max Clare, a tight end, to go to Ohio State. So you had talent on this team, and it got rated to go to better programs. So
even after spring, they did a 28-28 swap during the spring. So they had 28 leave in the spring, and they brought in 28. So this after spring ball. So even the guys who are coming in are going to be behind the 8 ball. Sorry to cut you off, Jake.
Yeah, I just have concerns that the talent level just isn't going to be there, and the talent they did have is now playing against them in their own conference.
Right. And Will Help went down to Clemson.
Yeah.
Defensive end, star defensive end.
It's another one. There were a couple decent players and talented players on this roster. Ryan Walters had some players there, but overall, Barry Odom wasn't able to maintain them, able to keep them. But it's hard when you have a new program, and a program like Oregon, a program like Ohio State, a program like Clemson is calling your name. It's hard to say that. Yeah, I'm going to stick it out with a new coach.
They were also 4-8, so I'm not mad that they lost everything and just replaced it. If I'm Barry Odom, I'm like, hey, let me just start with a clean freaking slate. Because I wouldn't doubt, just because 28 guys left in the spring doesn't mean 28 were asked to stay and they chose to leave.
No, you know that's a very fair point. I'm pointing out the guys that are good, but he probably brought in some players that were better than the guys that left. Might be some hidden gems.
Right. So he's starting with a clean slate, which if Barry Odom brings over his tenure, like he played at UNL or like he coached at UNLV, if he brings that winning culture over to Purdue, hey, I'm cool with you getting your guys. You got a guy named Nitro Tuggle that's playing there, all-time name. We really don't know what to think about him, but because they lost so much, because there's no continuity, because there's no way Barry Odom can put an entire culture and system in starting in the spring, I just don't have high hopes for them.
We saw Colorado bring in and lose a ton of transfers as well. We saw them struggle in the first year, but they also had Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders coming in.
Yeah.
There's not a Travis Hunter on this Purdue team.
Right.
The other team that we have that was tied for last place was Northwestern here. I had them at 17. You had them at 18. I could for sure see Northwestern end up finishing at 18. What did you like? What do you not like about Northwestern?
I'm going to be frank. And this is why I probably would be okay with swapping my Purdue and Northwestern picks anyway. I like Preston Stone. Before he broke his leg at SMU, he was lighting the world on fire through the air. Just a phenomenal passer. Breaks his leg. Kevin Jennings comes in. They start going back and forth. Who's going to be the quarterback? Who's going to be the quarterback? Preston Stone was a shell of himself last year. Well, he gets new life. He goes to Northwestern. I really, really like that quarterback. If he's healthy and he's in the right mindset, I think he could do good things. However, there's 21 other positions, and I don't like any of them at Northwestern. I don't think they have a dude anywhere. I might be missing somebody, and some Northwestern head, some Wildcat, some journalist who obviously went to Northwestern is going to jump in and say that I'm an idiot and call me names like the Boston College fans did. But that's okay. I am open to learning. If some journo wants to teach me about their team and tell me all about it, I'm all about it. But right now, I don't know anything about you. You are the new kid on the block that just came in. No one knows what to think about you, but you look a little scrawny, so no one's really that worried about you.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Preston Stone because I think there's a veteran leadership there. I think there's experience. I think by arm talent wise, he's probably one of the best quarterbacks to come through in a while. Northwestern has tried to find quarterbacks. They brought in, you'll know this name, Hunter Johnson. He was a former 5-star quarterback, and he just never put it together.
They also brought in Ryan Helinski, a former 5-star who went to South Carolina. They love taking former 5-stars out of South Carolina, the state of South Carolina, and not doing anything with them.
But they've brought in quarterbacks to try to fill that void. Preston Stone, I would say, is probably the most proven of the guys that have come through. But like you said, the injury, he was a shell of himself last year. How is that going to look one more year? Now, David Braun is entering his 3rd year. His first year, he was thrown in on it. Last year was not the greatest year. What does year 3 look like? I tend to think that this is going to be a tough year as well. Northwestern is definitely a tough job because of the academic standards that they're held to. I also think you lack a little bit of identity when you don't really have a true home stadium right now. They're playing in the makeshift stadium on the lake. They played at Wrigley Field for a game last year. I think they're playing a game at Soldier Field this year. When you're hosting games like Michigan, you cannot play Michigan at home in that 15,000 person stadium. So you're getting kicked out of your home, your makeshift home, and putting it into a bigger stadium that when it goes to a bigger stadium, you're going to have more of the opposing fans because that, Michigan is going to show up. When they played Ohio State at Wrigley Field, it was a lot of red at Wrigley Field. While it's a home game because you don't have to travel super far, it's not as comfortable. So I also wonder if there's a little bit of an identity crisis right now of we just don't feel comfortable until we have our home stadium back.
Right. I mean, and if you're young and you've never played in another environment and you're coming in and I'm at home, there's 15,000 guys. It just kind of feels like high school football. I'm good. And then
Texas has got high school football stadiums bigger than that.
Right. Then you go to a big stadium on the road, and then not only are you on the road for the first time, but you're in a big stadium for the first time. So it's going to be tough.
Big Ten stadiums are not, some small. A lot of them are pushing 80, 90, 100,000.
Yeah, and don't get it twisted. I like David Braun. I think David Braun could do great things. I just think, like you said, he's kind of handcuffed right now. I mean, all the funding has to be going towards building this new stadium. You already coach at Northwestern, which is a tough school. Shout out to Boston College and Purdue that we've already mentioned. You're right there in that same echelon of teams. But you've had guys come in there before. Purdue's had guys. Boston College has had guys. I would say Purdue has been the closest to being good. Purdue
made the Big Ten championship the last year, the East and West.
Right, and then Northwestern not too far behind them. I mean, they played Ohio State in the Big Ten championship.
Northwestern's made 2 Big Ten championships, if I remember right. I think they made it in 18 and 20.
Right, and they're hazing scandal away from having one of the oldest tenured coaches in the Big Ten with Pat Fitzgerald. So I don't know much about Northwestern outside of Preston Stone, like I said. So therefore, I cannot sit here and tell you that I think they're going to do well, especially with everything else that's going to be pitted against them.
Yeah, the one thing I don't like, I think the defense is going to struggle to keep them in games. They didn't have a ton of talent, but a couple of the guys that were, like Theron Johnson was a second-team All-Big Ten cornerback. He's now at Oregon. So the experience and the talent on the defensive side that you did have is gone. I think even if Preston Stone can figure it out and score some points, I think the defense is going to be the thing that lets him down this year. Maryland. Maryland is the next team that we have one here. I had Maryland at 16. You had Maryland at 15. We're right here in line with each other. We both think Maryland's going to be a very bottom dweller. What do you like? What do you not like?
I like that they have a clean slate. They have a pretty young team. They got a young quarterback coming in. I'm pretty sure they're projected to have a freshman quarterback start. His name is slipping my mind, but in the same breath, that's my least favorite thing about that team. So
Malik
you're
Washington,
young,
but they also brought in Justin Martin from UCLA.
Which if I'm coaching for Maryland and I bring in a guy and I get my own guy who I've recruited, he's a freshman, he's got the size, he's got everything. I'm already young everywhere else. Might as well just go ahead and see what can happen. So I don't know. In their most important position, I mean, you have some senior depth at the playmaking positions, but they've got freshmen and sophomores everywhere in this lineup. So they're fairly young. They don't have much experience, but that's also a positive because now they're clay. They're very moldable. They don't have bad habits. If you can keep them in this program, you might have a good shot.
Do you know Kevin Sumlin was the offensive coordinator there last year?
I did not.
I
did not.
But apparently he is not coaching this year.
Yeah.
Justin Martin was a young quarterback at UCLA. I think he might have been a freshman last year or a redshirt freshman. So he is still young coming over. It's not like he's a 4-year player. But I agree going with the young overall. The one thing, I think the schedule affords them a chance to possibly make a bowl game. I think that's the one thing I like because you have Florida Atlantic, Northern Illinois, Towson. I think those are 3 very winnable games. Wisconsin we'll get into Wisconsin here soon. I'm not super sold on Wisconsin. UCLA was also a bottom feeder last year. You got Rutgers. You got Michigan State was a bottom feeder. I think there's enough games that they could sneak their way to a bowl game because they avoid Ohio State. They avoid Oregon. They avoid Penn State. Like they avoid a lot of the big teams. You do get Michigan. You do get Illinois.
See, but the top teams that are on their schedule are very flawed. Indiana is still a flawed team. Michigan is a very flawed team. Illinois could have some flaws. That might be the best team on their schedule. I wouldn't be shocked to see Maryland win some of those games. It's not like I don't think Michigan's going to come in there and just thump them. I mean, it's November. We'll know who Michigan and we'll know who Maryland are at that point.
That's the thing. Some of these games are late in the season where it gives them a chance to build up. When you've got Illinois, Michigan, and Michigan State as your last 3 games, you can call them a freshman or sophomore, but by game 8 or 9, you know what you got out of the guys. You know what your expectations are. Maybe you get some shocking results, but overall, you know what you're running with at that point, and you should know how to game plan to your successes. So I think the schedule affords them. What I dislike is that they only have 7 returning starters. So you talk about the youth. And when I look at the transfers they bring in, none of them really jump off the page to me. You've got Justin Martin, who we talked about. You got Jaleel Farouk from Oklahoma. You've got Caleb Webb, who was the other couple other guys. But they bring in a bunch of transfers, and none of them I'm looking at and go, yep, that's going to be a guy that's going to make an impact this year. That's going to be some sort of game changer. And when I look at bringing in an Oklahoma transfer as a wide receiver, Oklahoma was terrible on offense last year. But so taking offensive skill players from Oklahoma isn't really something high on my priority list.
But that doesn't tell you too much because they also had Jackson Arnold as their quarterback who could not complete a pass.
Then they had what's his face that stepped in after him.
Yeah, Michael Smith. Hold on, I can tell you. You keep going.
You know who I'm talking about. Yep. But still, the offense really struggled at Oklahoma. I don't love only having 7 guys back, and you lost basically your offense when you lose Ty Felt and you lost Caden Prather. The offense scares me. I'm not sure if they're going to score a ton of points. It wouldn't shock me if somehow Maryland ends up being one of the worst teams in the country at the end of the year.
Michael Hawkins.
That is if Maryland finishes as the worst team in the Big Ten, I think I'd only be surprised because of the schedule, but I think you can look at it and say Maryland is the worst team in the Big Ten by production.
Yeah, you take these bottom 3-4 teams. I wouldn't be shocked if any of them are last at all. I also wouldn't be shocked if any of them kind of creep up into that 12 range. So that's what's crazy about some of these teams is yep, I don't know enough about them to think very positively of them, but I also don't know enough about them to think that, hey, the bottom half of the Big Ten, just like most of these conferences, is it's like a deck of cards. I mean, you could shuffle that around and be fine. So I mean, I'm not high on Maryland. Shout out to my grandma. She went to Maryland. Shout out to my grandpa. He went to Maryland. So got some family ties there.
Big Terp guy. You're a big Terp guy.
Hey, I was close to going there. Didn't realize it, but I was close to going there. If they even picked up the phone and said, "Well, you can play football at Maryland," I would have gone there because I would have. My
family ties would have got it.
What's that?
Family ties would have sold it on you.
Yeah, I would have been fine. Well, no, I mean, just give me an opportunity, and then my school would have been paid for.
That's true.
But we're not going to get into that, Jake. We're not going to get into that.
All right, 15, we got Minnesota here. So I had Minnesota at 13. You had Minnesota at 16. So we actually differed on this one a decent bit. What do you like about Minnesota? What don't you like about Minnesota?
I mean, I think I'm similar to you with what I like about Minnesota. You focused more on the deep. Well, I don't know. No spoilers. The defense in its entirety, I'm very keen on. I mean, yeah, they were a top 10 run defense last year. They did a really good job against the pass. I mean, they're a very well coached defense, and I think that's going to help them win a lot of games, especially with a young quarterback who both of us aren't really high on. I mean, he's a quarterback coming in, doesn't have much experience, didn't do much. I think he threw 3 passes last year, maybe more. But yeah, Drake Lindsey comes in as the redshirt freshman quarterback, and I'm not too high on Drake Lindsey. I don't know anything about him. You're a young quarterback coming to the Big Ten. Thank God you have a good defense. So that's why I can't put him too high, because now, as I'm saying this out loud, Minnesota always finds a way to have a good running back. They always have somebody that's back there. Obviously, I'm gonna go way back into the archives with Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis. I'm pretty sure he's from Minnesota. But ever since that era, I've always just remembered Minnesota having a dude that gets drafted in that backfield. Am I wrong? Is that a wrong feeling to have?
No, they always do, because even recently, you want to talk about like Mo Ibrahim, Lawrence Maroney, if you want to go back a little bit further, and they've got Darius Taylor this year, who is probably 1,000. He returns. He's gonna be 1,000-yard back, my guess. And what I do like is we talked about the defense. Coy Parrish, I think, is going to be an All-American safety this year. He had 5 interceptions last year. He's probably going to play on offense because he's just that dynamic. He gives a little bit of who was the cornerback from Iowa, who was their punt returner?
Cooper DeJean.
Yes. Gives a little bit of like Cooper DeJean vibes, because he's an explosive guy with the ball in his hands. He's going to probably play on special teams as a returner. He is dynamic. I think he is probably the second best safety he might be the second best safety in the country by the end of the year, but he's definitely the second best safety in the Big Ten behind Caleb Downs. I think that's pretty easy to say.
Why do you compare him to Cooper DeJean instead of another defensive back?
Well, Cooper DeJean also returned punts and had a lot of interceptions.
So, okay. I was going to say Jabril Peppers.
Jabril Peppers had 1 interception, and it was a tipped pass.
Well, I accidentally started a conversation with you about Jabril Peppers, and I didn't continue it. Jabril Peppers and pork rinds. All I have to tell you is that those two things, if you put a Venn diagram, there's a lot in the middle.
Peppers and pork rinds together?
Jabril Peppers and pork rinds.
Do I put peppers on my pork rinds?
You gotta think about it. Well, you can. Pork rinds, you can put almost any seasoning on it, and it's good. Jabril Peppers could play offense, defense, special teams, and be good. They're not the best. I wouldn't pick. He was I wouldn't pick pork rinds.
Player.
I wouldn't pick pork rinds over chips and salsa. But if pork rinds are something there, I'm taking it every time. But if you make it compete with something else, maybe I.
What do you think about like cracklins compared to it?
That's the same thing. That's not much different. That's cracklins are offense, pork rinds are defense. Chicharrones are special teams. So whatever you want to call them, Jabril Peppers, pork rinds.
Jabril Peppers could not play offense.
If you don't get anything else out of this podcast, just know that Jake is wrong on this, and that Jabril Peppers and pork rinds are the same thing.
I can't wait till we put this clip up. Anyways, Coy Parrish, I think, is going to be a reason why they win an extra game or two. Dislike is Drake Lindsey. He threw 5 passes last year. We did throw a touchdown. Threw a touchdown against Rhode Island. But still, you threw 5 passes. There is a concern about the quarterback position there. At least he has been in the program for a year. He's not a true freshman coming in. But the fact is, you've still only thrown 5 passes, and that's a concern.
But if you've got that running back, and you've got a strong defense, you have the ability to have some growing pains and to take some chances. So so maybe you're more warranted to have them as high as you have them at 13. Maybe they could jump up a little bit higher. Maybe they can be the 10th best team.
Yeah, we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota finishes with 7 or 8 wins, because I do think PJ Fleck is an overall good coach. I don't think he is a championship caliber coach, but I think at a program like Minnesota, where you are not having championship expectations on a yearly basis, he is like a perfect fit. He can sell the program to recruits. He brings in a strong culture. When you look at the schedule this year, they got Buffalo, Northwestern State, Cal. Those are 3 games that they can definitely win. Rutgers, they probably won't beat Ohio State on the road, but Purdue, Nebraska, you never know. Iowa, probably not, but you don't know. Michigan State, you could win that one. At Oregon, feels unlikely. At Northwestern, feels probable. And then Wisconsin. I see that there are probably like 4 guaranteed wins. I see there's probably like 4 toss-up games and probably 3 or 4 games where I don't see them winning.
Right.
But they could pull one of those out.
Yeah.
So I think they could finish anywhere between 4 and 8 wins, which is a pretty low floor and a decently high ceiling.
Yeah.
All right, next one here. So Minnesota was at 15. We got Rutgers at 14. I had Rutgers at 14. You had Rutgers at 13. So we're right in line on this one. For Rutgers, I think that they're going to at least have a decently strong stable of running backs. They had Kyle Monangai last year. This year, they've got CJ Campbell coming over from, maybe it was Antoine Raymond. I forget. One of these guys is a transfer from one of the Florida regional schools. But CJ Campbell, Samuel Brown, and Antoine Raymond, I think all 3 guys bring experience. Nobody just had like 12 rushes last year. They all at least had rushes, especially in major games. So I think that they're going to have a decently strong stable of running backs they can rely on. What I don't like is that Ethan Kalakamakis, is that how you say it? That one. I don't think he's a power 4 starter at quarterback. Like, that's a major problem. He had 4 games where he completed 50% of passes or worse. That is not something you can have as a Big Ten starter at quarterback. You can't have your quarterback throwing under 50% that many games.
It'd be pretty cool. So if
he wins the Heisman,
that I'll bookmark this. What if he had brothers
named Ethan?
Ethan, Uthan, sometimes Wythan. So just all the vowels. I mean, I've never heard of an Ethan. You can't just put an E in there?
Have you heard of Tathan, though?
Oh, I forgot Ethan. I forgot Ethan. Ethan sounds like you're trying to say Ivan, but you have a little bit of a lisp.
Yeah, you have a lisp, but pretty bad lisp.
Very bad lisp if you're saying Ethan for Ivan. Anyway, what I like about Rutgers is Greg Schiano has brought life back to this program. I mean, they're starting to win. They beat Clemson out for a linebacker in last year's recruiting cycle. I just want to make sure people understand that. Like, they're competing with some programs and keeping guys in state. Which New Jersey is not a bad state when it comes to high school talent. Shout out to the same Boston College fans who try to tell me that New England produces a lot of talent. They don't.
Yeah, what was that? Some guy was saying that New England,
a class of 17 and 50 of them were playing D1. D1 what?
Like, we're talking about FBS here. We're not talking about FCS programs.
Yeah. Like, nothing against those, but don't stay here and try to tell me New England is a hotbed of talent. No, it's a cesspool of talent.
I went and looked for this upcoming year, and the rankings can change. Massachusetts has a few blue chips, 4 stars and higher. I even looked, I think it was the top 1,000 players by 24/7. I think Massachusetts is somewhere like in the 11 or 12 range. Connecticut had like 3. Rhode Island, I think, had 1. And then New Hampshire, Vermont had 1, and then the other one had 0, and Maine had 0.
It ain't no way it's Vermont. It's got to be New Hampshire.
Because Vermont doesn't produce guys that go to the NFL.
My wife went to the biggest high school in Vermont, and they had to combine with their rival school to field a football team. There ain't nobody coming out of Vermont.
That's insane.
Bring football back to Vermont. That's another thing you need to get. Bring football back to Vermont. You've got some maple syrup toting, moose fighting people up there. Why aren't we playing football?
Play hockey.
No, don't play hockey. I mean, you can, but also play football. Be a two-sport athlete. We got him all the time.
Anyways,
I'm getting a little out of hand today. I'm sorry, Rutgers. Like I said, Greg Schiano is bringing talent back, or some hype back to the Rutgers program back when football was founded. And then losing star running back Kyle Monangai hurts. Yes, you have the stable of running backs that you referenced earlier with C.J. Campbell, Samuel Brown, and Antoine Raymond. However, Kyle Monangai was a dude. That was your bell cow, and you don't have that right now. You don't have a guy that I've heard that has really taken that next step like he did, like Kyle Monangai did with that team. I mean, Kyle Monangai, the last 2 years of his tenure there, I mean, he really built a name for himself and carried that offense in a lot of games where maybe they lose. He goes to be third, fifth round draft pick, so pretty high draft pick for a running back nowadays. So losing that hurts, especially in a program like Rutgers. If you get somebody drafted at Rutgers, it's going to hurt your program.
I agree. Hey, number 13, we've got Wisconsin, and we are actually varying on this one. You've got Wisconsin at 11. I have Wisconsin at 15.
And we're also similar in what we like and don't like. I mean, I like that they're going back to the old school. They're getting back to what Wisconsin's good at. We got the big Midwestern corn-fed boys playing, the fish fry boys playing offensive line. That's what you need. That's what you rely on. That's your bread and butter. Run that freaking football. Who's going to run the damn football? So I also dislike that they're going back to the old school ways because you just went through 2 recruiting cycles with Luke Fickell recruiting guys who are in a spread offense. Now you're flipping back to go towards what your bread and butter was. So now you're having to restructure and reframe what you have already built for 2 years and try to switch it over to what they already were doing beforehand. So it's going to hurt you. You're going to have growing pains for another couple of years.
Yeah, like last year they had Tyree Walker who played decently well, but what I like is, the fact that they're going back to their old school style of run the football. What I don't like is any of the running backs because none of them jump off the page as game changers. I mean, even when you go back in the early 2000s when you had guys like John Clay or James White, like those guys weren't like true game breakers, but they were consistent. I don't even notice if there's anybody at like a mediocre level here. Like, I think it's going to be a real struggle. And then when you look at their schedule, the schedule is absolutely brutal. They go to Alabama, they go to Michigan, they go to Oregon, they go to Indiana, they go to Minnesota, and then they also host Ohio State and Iowa in this schedule. Oh, and they host Illinois too. They basically have I think I read they have arguably the hardest schedule in the country this year.
Yeah, they're up there.
Games at Alabama, Michigan, Oregon, Indiana, Minnesota, and then hosting Illinois, Ohio State, and Iowa.
Good God.
I don't know if they win any of those games, if I'm being honest. Like Minnesota, maybe they beat Minnesota. I'll give you that one. But when you look at Alabama, Michigan, Iowa, Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana, Illinois, that is 7 games that I don't believe they win any of those.
They also have a fullback playing tight end. I don't know how I feel about having a 6-foot guy playing tight end. 6 foot 260 is insane.
That is very short.
There's an H-back, so that tells me they really are going to. I mean, he's probably going to predominantly play in the backfield.
Yeah. Number 12 here, we've got UCLA. I actually had UCLA at 12. You had them at 14. You had them a little bit lower. For me, UCLA, the one thing that I liked is at the end of the last year, they won 4 of their last 6 games. So they were out of it. They only won 5 games. So they started off very terrible, but they put it together. They won 4 of their last 6 games. They nearly beat USC towards the end of the year. And they also added Nico at quarterback. Quarterback was not a fantastic spot. They really struggled to move the ball. But I like that, Deshaun Foster was able to rally the troops and show some fight. And then you brought in an experienced quarterback. What I don't like is this defense was their bread and butter. They lost 2 linebackers and they returned just 4 guys on defense. Now you're asking the offense to make a bigger step forward. And I think Nico's fine. I think adding experience at quarterback is good. I don't think he is the guy that's going to be lights out for them, though.
Yeah. I'm a little similar. I like Deshaun Foster coming back. Yeah, he got made fun of a lot because of Big Ten Media Day last year. But like you said, he ended the year on a strong note. They beat Iowa. I'm pretty sure that was at Iowa. Maybe it was at home. But they also beat Nebraska, which Nebraska was an up and down team, a 1-loss game. No spoilers, but I'm going to bring that up again later. You bring Nico in. I don't know how much Nico moves the needle for me. Yes, I think Nico is an above average quarterback. I think he is good. But who is he going to throw to at UCLA? And now you're going up against defenses that you could argue are similar to the SEC. So I think we're going to see some struggles from Nico. And the defense is just, I think the defense will be good. I'm not ready to write off that defense yet. So we'll see. But Deshaun Foster coming back helps me out a lot. He's building a culture there. But Nico doesn't really move the needle for me. They do also bring in Nico's brother Madden. So this is transfer
Madden?
city right now.
Madden is such a wild name.
11.
This is.
Go ahead.
I would say 11. I think this is one of the most exciting teams. I think this team we have at 11 has a chance to make the highest rise, but I could also see them hitting the lowest floor. We have Washington here. And I think one reason why we both like Washington is DeMond Williams has absolute superstar potential. He played sparingly, and then towards the end of the year, he actually was playing. He got got some starts, limited action, completed over 78% of his passes, almost 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, and he threw for 374 yards on Louisville in their bowl game. So, I mean, he was showing out when he had the opportunity as a freshman. The one thing I don't like is last year they couldn't stop the run. They lost their defensive coordinator, Belichick, to North Carolina. Ryan Walters does take over, who was a pretty good defensive coordinator for Illinois under Brett Bielema. But I think that the defense is going to take a step back under a new defensive coordinator again, because now this is the third defensive coordinator for any of these guys that have been there. I think Ryan Walters is a really good hire, but I think it's going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah, it kind of sucks that Washington has kind of turned into a stepping stone for coaches. I mean, you have, Steve Belichick comes in and then ends up going to
that. I think I think that's more of a situational.
Yeah. But then the year before that, you have Kellen DeBoer leaves,
yes,
Ryan Grubb leaves. Like that hurt. You clean the slate, and they were still able to be formidable. So kudos to them for just not rolling over. But like I said, my dislike is that when DeBoer left, they lost a lot of momentum, and it seems like they're taking another hit. I mean, Steve Belichick, I think he did a decent job. Like you said, his rush defense was a little lackluster, but they were still a top 30 defense in the country last year. But DeMond Williams, when you have a superstar at quarterback who can make plays out of nothing and keep that offense on the field and convert some third downs that shouldn't have been converted and give that defense a break, you'll make the defense be statistically a little bit better. So the team is going to live and die with him. So we'll see how he handles it.
At 10, who was actually tied with Washington, we have Michigan State. I had Michigan State at 11. You had them at 10. Washington, I had at 9. You had at 12. So for Michigan State here, what is one thing you like?
I like Nick Marsh and Aiden Childs being back together for a second year. I think Nick Marsh is a very, very, very underrated player. I think he's a really good playmaker. He's a sophomore. Last year was a true freshman. Had 3 touchdowns, over 600 yards receiving. Aiden Childs, he's a junior this year, but technically that was his first year playing. He was behind DJ Uiagalelei at Oregon State.
Yeah, he was a redshirt freshman last year.
Right. So, I mean, this is his second year starting. He's with Jonathan Smith. He's in the same system. So I look for him to take a step forward. But what I don't like is outside of Nick Marsh, I don't really know what else Michigan State has. I'm used to seeing Michigan State having a running back, having a guy that they can rely on, having a pocket passer, but they don't have that. They have a running quarterback in Aiden Childs who can move, who can play make, sometimes makes mistakes because of that. And then they have a big-time receiver. I'm not used to seeing that. I'm used to seeing it look a lot differently. So I think Michigan State is one of those teams that can shock a lot of people. They can win a lot of games they shouldn't. But I think they're going to be middle of the road in the Big Ten, with the Big Ten being as top-heavy as it is.
Yeah, I'm with you in there on Nick Marsh. I think he's one of the best kept secrets that as a true freshman, if you didn't have Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams, people actually would have talked about him. The problem is Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams were in the same exact class, and they were making crazy catches. And
think about this, Jake. The wide receiver class last year for the freshmen: Ryan Wingo, Jeremiah Smith, Ryan Williams, TJ Moore, Bryant Wesco. That's just 5 guys. Cam Coleman.
You haven't even mentioned Nick Marsh in that.
Yeah, haven't even mentioned Nick Marsh. That's 7 guys who were essentially wide receiver ones on their respective teams. Bryant Wesco and TJ Moore weren't wide receiver ones, but they were very significant in the Clemson offense last year. That's a lot of big-time wide receivers that were true freshmen. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And Ryan Wingo wasn't either. Sorry.
Yeah, Ryan Wingo was not. Matthew Golden was at Texas. But Nick Marsh, I think, is one of the best kept secrets. I think another year he's only going to improve. What I didn't like and what I still don't like is Aiden Child's decision-making. He threw 11 interceptions, fumbled 4 times. A couple of them were very costly turnovers in time and location. Is that going to improve, or is this just going to be the Aiden Childs that he is? That I have a concern.
Yeah, you think about the Michigan game. There's some times that Michigan State could have put him away, and they just didn't. And I think it was because of an Aiden Childs turnover. So
I remember against Oregon, Aiden Childs had taken Michigan State down into the red zone on 2 different occasions and turned the ball over both times.
Yes, that game was like a turnover festival, if I remember correctly.
Because not that Michigan State was going to win that game. They weren't going to beat Oregon, but they didn't even get a chance to put pressure on Oregon because every time that they got close to scoring, they gave the ball right back. So Aiden Childs has to improve that. I think there's a lot of talent there, but the decision-making is a question. At number 9 here, we've got Indiana. You had Indiana at 8. I have them at 10. I think we both have a very similar thought process on all of this overall. For me, I like the transfers they brought in. They brought in a bunch of guys last year when Curt Cignetti. They still return the 44th most production in college football. Usually when you bring in a lot of transfers, there are a lot of one-year guys. They're out, but they still are 44th in production. They bring in Fernando Mendoza at quarterback. I think it was Updog Sports mentioned that Fernando Mendoza could be a top 10 pick in next year's draft. I'm not that high on Mendoza. I think that he is actually going to be a little bit of a step back compared to Curtis Rourke in terms of throwing ability. I think he's going to be a way more mobile quarterback, though. And the thing I don't like is I think Curt Cignetti's mouth is going to catch up to him a little bit this year because he talked a lot last year. And I think now this year, they aren't a hidden secret. There's going to be a little bit more of a target on their back. They made the college football playoff. I think it's going to catch up with him for a game or two this year.
Last year, Jake, I was screaming anti-Carson Beck propaganda. Screaming it. Fernando Mendoza is my Carson Beck this year. I think he's getting way too much hype. I think he was above average at best at Cal. He doesn't do it for me. Yes, I think he is a good quarterback, but he is not Curtis Rourke. I was extremely high. I was giraffe nuts high on Curtis Rourke coming in last year, the Maple Missile. I'm not like that with Fernando Mendoza. He's just another dude. He's just another guy. I'm not sure he can do to the offense that I don't think he can do for the Indiana offense what Curtis Rourke could and keep them in the games. I think the defense is still going to be phenomenal. I think that's the Curt Cignetti effect. The thing I like about him is Curt Cignetti's culture that he's built. But I think this offense is about to take a huge step back. And I'm telling you, like when it comes to pocket passing and the ability to throw the football and then the toughness that Curtis Rourke had, Fernando Mendoza does not have that. Maybe he proves me wrong. I hope he does prove me wrong. I'm not high on this team at all.
Yeah, and the schedule is significantly tougher this year than it was last year.
Go ahead, sorry.
Because they have a three straight games over 4 weeks. There's a bye in there. Illinois, at Iowa, off at Oregon. It wouldn't shock me if they lose all 3 of those.
Yeah, I went off script. The September to October slate is going to be very, very tough. Like you said, Illinois, Iowa, Oregon, Michigan State, UCLA. None of those are gimme games.
No.
Even UCLA is tough. So,
no. And then they have Penn State in November.
Right.
At Penn State, who, spoiler, if nobody's noticed, they're going to be a top 5 team in the country this year.
Right. Will they be a top 5 in our Big Ten preview? Keep listening and find out.
If you think they're not, you might as well just stop listening now. All right, at number 8, we've got Michigan. I had Michigan at 7. You had Michigan at 9. What we notice here is we're usually 2 spots off on a lot of these. So I've got Michigan at 7. You've got Michigan at 9. What I like about Michigan this year is I think Bryce Underwood is going to be electric at times. I think they're going to start him off a little bit as they did J.J. McCarthy. I don't know if he's going to get the start on the first day. I think they're going to use Mikey Keene. But I think Bryce Underwood is going to play a decent bit. It wouldn't shock me if they have Mikey Keene start especially because that Oklahoma game coming, it's second week. Do you really want to put Bryce Underwood out there? And if he struggles on the road, like, is that going to kill confidence? But I think Underwood is going to make some incredible plays this year. What I don't like is there is not an easy way to replace Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. Like, there's not an easy way because there's no way to replace Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant. Nobody just has the two best defensive tackles in the country on their team at any given time.
Right. And I'm a little similar, but I'm going to focus on the offensive side of the ball. I think they do have a potential playmaker at quarterback. I think the hype is a little overzealous right now. Maybe that's the hipster in me, but I don't think you did enough for him. And this is what I dislike about the team. I don't think they did enough for him on the offensive side of the ball to help him flourish as a young quarterback who has to play Oklahoma early. I disagree with you on Mikey Keene starting because they're playing Oklahoma. I still think Bryce Underwood's going to start. They go and bring Jake Garcia in the transfer portal this week out of East Carolina.
That was straight up a depth pick. Hey, we need
doing?
one more quarterback in here for experience in case something happens.
That tells me a third string guy probably is going to be out for the season, hurt himself pretty badly. But you don't have a wide receiver that's proven themselves. The wide receiver.
Donovan McCulley is like the closest, but he didn't even play for Indiana last year.
Right. So it's like you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know if he's going to be a shell of himself. You don't know if he's going to be any good. The Michigan offense is really going to struggle. And then, yeah, like you said, you've lost so much on that defensive side of the ball. And I'm forgetting the cornerback's name, Will
Johnson.
Thank you. Will Johnson was also a stud. I know he got a lot of bad publicity towards the end of it, but the biggest loss is Colston Loveland. You lose.
That is a very good point.
One of the best tight ends you've ever had, maybe one of the best tight ends in college football, with a terrible quarterback, and he's still able to carry that offense. Like, losing him is going to really, really suck for this offense particularly. So I'm not very high on Michigan at all. I think some people have them as high as second or third in the conference, and I think that's laughable.
Yeah, I wouldn't have them that high. I think there's some concerns there on the offense for sure. At number 7 here, we've got Nebraska. I had Nebraska at 8. You had Nebraska at 6. The trend continues. We're 2 spots off on each other. Why do you like Nebraska?
I like Nebraska because of Dylan Raiola. This is second year. He looked really good at times. We go back to the Ohio State game, and there was times where he was just making, leaving it all out there. And then there was also times where, like, dude, if you hit that pass, you probably win this game. Like, you just missed a wide open receiver. I think that was him being a true freshman playing in Columbus. So you saw glimpses of what Dylan Raiola could be. You also saw glimpses of him being young and flawed. I like that he's coming back. I like that they stacked people around him. You mentioned no spoilers, but they brought in some transfer wide receivers that are going to be really good. What I don't like about him is the close game jitters. Now, this could easily be flipped to what I like about him. You have a freshman quarterback, and you're losing 5 one-score games. You lost to Ohio State, UCLA, USC, Iowa, and Illinois, all formidable teams in the Big Ten in one-score games. Now, you won 2 one-score games against Rutgers and Boston College. There you go. Your little tiny birthday hat.
Do you think Boston College fans were at the game?
No, they don't exist, even though it was in Fenway.
Wasn't they were all wearing Red Sox gear?
Yeah, the Wasabi Fenway Bowl. But this could be flipped. So if they lost those close games because of Dylan Raiola, you have to think that he comes back, he improves. They put the weapons around him. Now they start winning those close games. Right now, I have it as a dislike because of that.
Yeah, I'm with you on the offense. Raiola, they got weapons. Dane Key from Kentucky had over 700 yards, and Isaiah Hunter from Cal. You bring in some proven wide receivers, guys that have been, playmakers on their own team. You give Raiola some more weapons at wide receiver, and I think that's going to help the offense because what I dislike is the defense. So the offense is going to have to score more points. The defense was hit hard with losses. They lost a couple guys to the transfer portal. They also lost their defensive coordinator to Florida State, and they promoted from within, which sometimes is good, sometimes is bad.
Yeah,
we'll see how this one works out. But I don't love that the defense was hit hard with losses. I think Raiola and company will be a more explosive offense this year, but they're going to have to be to keep them in games.
Right.
We are up to number 6 here. Number 6, we got USC. I had USC at 6. You had them at 7. So they were technically points-wise 6.5. I like USC this year because Makai Lemon and Jacoby Lane, I think, are one of the underrated duos of wide receivers in the country. I think they're going to make the offensive job a lot easier, even with the loss of Zachariah Branch. I think that Lane and Lemon are going to help that offense for sure. What I don't like is I don't really believe in Jaden Maeva. I don't know if he is a game changer. I don't know if he really fits that Lincoln Riley quarterback mold. I don't know if he is the explosive passer that they're used to. I mean, I think back to towards the end of the year against Notre Dame, they were in it for a good bit, and he threw 2 pick sixes to seal the game. 99-yard pick sixes twice. Drives them down the field and hits the cornerbacks, and they, throws 2 pick sixes. I don't think he is the guy that is going to be able to get them over the hump and push them into the playoff.
Yeah. What I have as a is I like they have playmakers everywhere, but what I really want to focus on too is the size of this offensive line. They finally have this Big Ten offensive line. Your smallest guy is 6'3", 320, 6'4", 310. So you've got some dudes who've got some weight to them. So they're not going to be pushed around. They might have a more physical identity, which we really saw that in some games last year in the Big Ten where they just got bullied. But what I don't like is Zachariah Branch being gone. Yes, Makai Lemon is there. Yes, Jacoby Lane is there. Those are really good slot receivers. But what Zachariah Branch could do was anytime the ball touched his hands, he could score. And that was special teams too. I like the addition of Prince Strachan out of Boise State. He's a big guy. So if he can be that red zone target, that jump ball guy that you lose in Hudson, I forget where Hudson went. He went to Penn State. You lose that, you bring him in out of Boise State. I think that could really, really help. I want to see an identity out of this team. I don't think this is going to be a normal Lincoln Riley team. Like you said, quarterback's not the star that you're used to. But I really just think this might be an identity shift team. So USC could be really, really good, or they could be another mediocre team. I don't think they're going to. I think their floor is making a bowl game.
I agree. I don't look at this and go, USC is going to finish under 500. They avoid Penn State. They avoid Ohio State. They do have Oregon, but they have Illinois and they have Michigan. Of course, they have Notre Dame in there. But the schedule does have some breaks in there where they should be able to handle a couple of these teams. At 5 here, we both have Iowa. So we both agree that Iowa is the 5th team. And I think this is kind of squarely in the middle, or maybe the bottom of tier 2, I guess I would call this. Yeah. I don't either bottom of tier 2 or top of tier 3. I don't know if I would call I don't know if USC is tier 2, in my opinion. Right. I think this maybe is the bottom of tier 2 where I could see Iowa making a little bit more of a jump. What I like is that Iowa might actually be able to throw the ball this year. That Iowa went out and I don't want to say they've realized, everybody and their brother has known that Iowa needs a better quarterback. But you drop down to division to FCS, you go get Mark Gronowski. He was a standout at South Dakota State, a guy who can sling the ball around, not afraid to make some mistakes. And I like that they went out and got an actual quarterback with experience throwing the ball rather than something on potential, bringing in Cade McNamara or something like that. You got a guy who can sling it. I don't think they're going to be a gunslinger offense, but you have a guy who can rip it when you need to.
Right. And what the least amount of go ahead.
Finish your thought.
The least amount of yards that Gronkowski's run for is 380 in his career, and that was last year. And that's because they threw the ball more. So I really like that pickup. No spoilers.
What I dislike is replacing Caleb Johnson. Although I think Kamari Moulton is going to be fine, Caleb Johnson was a stud at running back. I mean, everybody knew that they were running the ball, and Caleb Johnson was still going for 100 yards a game.
Yeah. Now, and to build on that, Kamari Moulton did average over 5 yards a rush last year. He started 2 games, I think, where Caleb Johnson got hurt. So Iowa's going to have a good offensive line. They're going to have a tight end. They're going to have a running back. But what they're not going to have, which is what I like, they're going to have a playmaker at quarterback. They're not going to have a statue. Gone are the days of the guy's name is slipping my mind right now. I can see him. Anyway, gone are the days of the statue quarterbacks who are really good at handing it off and can hit a couple play actions. If Mark Gronkowski does a play action and there's nothing there, he's going to take off running. They haven't had that at Iowa. So can Kirk Ferentz's scheme, which is what I don't like, can his scheme adapt to that kind of playmaking quarterback? We'll have to see. You saw it with Hank Brown a little bit when Hank Brown came in. Hank Brown last year had that ability to run and was mobile. But Mark Gronkowski is an extremely good quarterback. I'm really high on him. He is my Curtis for this year. Iowa is one of those teams that I would not be shocked to see them in the Big Ten championship game. Would not be shocked.
The schedule is not the easiest. They do avoid Ohio State, but they get Penn State and Oregon at home, including Indiana at home. You avoid Illinois. Your road games are Iowa State, Rutgers, Wisconsin, USC, Nebraska, all very winnable games. And the fact that you get Penn State and Oregon at home, that for sure is, a sigh of relief for them.
And say they lose those two games. Say they lose to Penn State and Oregon. That's two losses. I mean, you're 5-2 in your conference. You have a chance. Or excuse me, you're 7-2 in the conference. You'll play 9 games. No, it's 8.
No, they play 9.
So you're 6-2. 9. Okay, so you're 7-2 in your conference. Math is hard. You're in the run to be in the championship game. Now we're assuming that no spoilers.
10-2 is also going to give you an outside shot at the college football playoff. They would probably lack a premier win here. But 10-2 is going to put you squarely in that discussion.
You go and smack down Iowa State. You beat Indiana. If you beat Penn State or Oregon, I think they're in the college football playoff if they handle business everywhere else.
I would agree. And I think you can even afford a slip up if you beat Penn State or Oregon.
Yeah.
Top 4. Our top 4 teams are very close. So you and I have 3 and 4 flipped. I have Oregon at 3, you have Oregon at 4. Oregon, the one thing that I like, they actually have a quarterback with starting experience who has been in the program for 2 years. Will be in the program for 2 years because Dante Moore started a full season in UCLA. So when he comes out and goes under center that first game, it's not the first time he's ever started a game. He has a full year of experience. He chose to sit behind Dillon Gabriel, knowing he wanted to go to Oregon and that his time would be a year away. I think that is some invaluable experience. It's not like he didn't play at all. He definitely still got playing time, a lot of scrub minutes, but he got a chance to play. What I don't like is that a lot of their key positions are transfers coming in, running back, tight end, safety, players coming from smaller programs that are now needing to take the step up to Oregon. Running back is coming from Tulane, tackle from Nevada, safety from Purdue, cornerback from Northwestern. How is that going to translate to step up to Oregon, where now you need to make sure that you are playing your best? And yeah, I know Tulane was a pretty good program last year, but all these other ones, how is that going to translate? Are they going to be able to make that step up to the program?
Right. I was kind of being a little tongue-in-cheek when I did theirs. I liked Atticus Sappington, and I disliked Bear Alexander. Atticus Sappington might be the best name in college football. Bear Alexander, I think he entered the transfer portal when his mom was about to give birth. I think she was 8 months in, and he decommitted. But in all seriousness, I really like the top of this depth of the roster of Oregon. I really think Dante Moore is going to be an excellent quarterback. I think he's going to take a huge step forward. He's not at UCLA. He's going to have better targets. I know they just lost Evan Stewart for the year, which was terrible. I thought he was going to have a breakout year. But DeCorian Moore, I think, can be a superstar in college football. Like you said,
you still have Gary Bryant Jr., who is in his 9th year playing wide receiver somehow.
Yeah, but you go back to Mekhi Hughes, the running back from Tulane, I think is also going to be a household name, potentially a 1st or 2nd round draft pick. That guy can flat out play some freaking football, and I think the world's about to find out. Mm-hmm. Noah Whittington's the senior that they have there is also a good running back, so it's not like Malachi Hughes has to be the bell cow. Yeah. He can get spelled. So I'm really liking what I see from the offense. the defense is going to be an Oregon defense. It's going to be a Dan Lanning coach defense. It's going to be tough nose. They're going to be a really, really good team. So, yeah, I was a little tongue in cheek in my like and dislike, but I think 4 could be low. The reason I have them at 4,
have them at tied at 3, technically, I will say.
Right. So it's like I had him at 4 because I want to see more out of Dante Moore. I want to see him complete more than 54% of his passes. If he can do that, if he takes that leap and it's not a lack of talent thing that he had at UCLA, it's all right. Now he's at Oregon, he's with talent. Now he's completing more of those passes. I think they can be in the Big Ten championship game. These top 4 teams all can play in the Big Ten championship, obviously.
I wouldn't be shocked if them. At 3, then, we have Illinois. I had Illinois at 4. You had them at 3. Why do you like Illinois?
I love Luke Altmaier. I love Brett Bielema. I love the culture he's built there. They don't give a damn. I mean, you go back to the bowl game where he's just egging on Coach Beamer. He's obviously gotten under his skin. He's getting him to react and coach emotionally. That tells me that Brett Bielema, he doesn't care how he has to win. He's going to find a way to win. They return almost everybody on that offense. I mean, they return, how many people will they return, Jake? Do you remember?
They have the 3rd most production returning in college football this year.
Yeah, and that's insane. Now, I don't like that they lost their 2 best receivers. They lose, I had it written down. They lost Pat Bryant and
Zachary Franklin is one of them.
So losing those 2 guys suck when you already have kind of a weak wide receiving core. But hey, maybe one of these guys that comes in, steps up, and becomes them. So they're going to rely on the running game. They're going to rely on just being smash mouth football, and they're going to rely on having a very well coached defense, which is what Brett Bielema does. They don't miss tackles. They don't miss assignments. The secondary is kind of iffy, but I think overall that's a really, really good team, a really sound football team that's not going to lose any games. You're going to have to go out there and beat them. You're going to have to out-talent them. They're not going to go out there and lose.
Yeah. What I like about Illinois is they have so much returning production. I mentioned 3rd most in the country, and they have an overall favorable schedule. When you look at it, non-conferences, Western Illinois, Duke, West Michigan. Then they go to Indiana, USC, at Purdue, and then the big game there, October 11th, they host Ohio State. Following that, they go Washington, Rutgers, Maryland, Wisconsin, Northwestern. So they don't have Penn State, they don't have Oregon, they don't have Iowa. They don't have Michigan. They play mostly expected to be middle to bottom half of the conference teams here.
They have Indiana's schedule last year. This is Indiana.
Do.
This is just Indiana 2.0.
I think Duke is going to be a tougher game than probably a lot of people are going to give them credit for. On the road to Indiana, on the road to Washington. I think there's a couple trap games in here, but I think that there's no reason Illinois shouldn't be 10-2, if not 11-1. I don't want to say that they can beat Ohio State because I don't think that they can match up. Because the one thing that I don't like is that their secondary struggled against basically every quarterback with a pulse last year. They gave up 297 to Raylo. They gave up 297 to Ryan Brown from Purdue. They gave up 298 to Gabriel. They gave over 300 Northwestern. They were 12th in passing defense last year. Maybe that gets better with all the returning production, but it is a concern for me that basically any quarterback with a pulse was throwing all over them.
Yeah, and you have to think they've tried to fix that. That's going to be a highlight of this offseason.
At number 2 here, we both agree on this one. We've got Ohio State at number 2. You want to go first? You want me to?
I can go first. I want you to be able to really get long-winded on your team. So what I like about Ohio State, they just have this innate ability to reload every single year. They're one of those teams that they're never going to be bad. They're not competing for national championships every year, but they're competing to be in the playoff every single year, which is not normal, people, by the way. So Julian Sand comes in. He's a redshirt freshman. I think he's extremely talented. People are saying Keen Holtz could beat him out because of his playmaking ability. I don't think so. I think the defense is going to take a step forward, believe it or not, this year. Yes, you lose Jim Knowles, whatever. I think this team is just loaded with talent. I mean, the defensive line is young, but I think the defensive line is good, maybe even better than it was last year, long term. So what I don't like about this team, you lose both your coordinators in the same offseason, that you're going to see that in some games, especially when you have a young quarterback who hasn't played yet. But the positive part, the offensive coordinator was in the program. It's Brian Hartline. And you have to know, too, that Ryan Day is going to be right there in his ear. A former play caller, the guy who knows offenses in and out, played quarterback. So he's got that help. The wide receiver core is going to be extremely deep. Brandon Ennis is still playing football somehow. So very excited to see what Ohio State can do this year for you, Jake. And I think there's going to be what we're always used to seeing in the national conversation.
Yeah, the one thing I like is Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs. I've said this, and I believe this. I think Jeremiah Smith and Caleb Downs are the two best players in college football. I don't think there's too much of a debate with that. I think Caleb Downs is the best defensive player in college football, and I think Jeremiah Smith is the best offensive player in college football. Jeremiah Smith, we saw what he did last year. He is going to be Julian Sain's best friend. Having a receiver like that you just need to get it somewhere around him, and he's going to make the catch. The fact that Jeremiah Smith had one drop last year, and it was the very first pass attempt to him, and then he caught everything else is absurd. And then Caleb Downs just does Caleb Downs things. He makes open field tackles. He scores on punt returns. He gets interceptions. He, busts up a play at the line and, forces Texas on a pitch play to go the whole way to the boundary and loses 7 yards on the goal line. Caleb Downs just does all those little things correct that makes a whole defense. It makes it easier for the entire defense.
Yeah.
What I don't like is that they're going to have basically a whole new defensive line in there. They brought in Bo Atkinson from North Carolina. Kenyatta Jackson played a decent bit. They'll have 2 defensive tackles with experience, but all 4 defensive linemen that were starters last year are gone.
Yep.
And for a team that they weren't great at rushing the passer last year, bringing in 4 new guys shouldn't give you a ton of confidence, the ability to rush the passer. And I think Atkinson can help with that one a little bit because he was pretty solid at rushing the passer. But I think there's a concern about how is that defensive line going to play, especially with week 1 against Texas.
I disagree with you a little bit on that. If you had a defensive line last year that struggled to get to the passer, hey, let's clean that slate. Yes, they're all really good guys. They were really good at playing overall. Edric Houston is who I really want to highlight there. He's a thinner defensive tackle, but if he can put pressure on quarterbacks on the inside, defensive ends are just going to eat him up. So I think Ohio State is going to have a much better pass rush this year in terms of sacks and production.
I could see that. Then number 1, we obviously have Penn State here. Penn State, we both agreed. I'll let you go first.
Okay. I mean, shout out Landon Tingwall. This is not for you, but this is for you. I love that they added playmakers for Drew Aller. What was the biggest knock on Penn State last year? They didn't have any dudes on the outside that could go out there and win. So what do? You go get Trevor Pena out of Syracuse. It was a little controversial him leaving Syracuse. Very good receiver, 1,000-yard receiver last year, just extremely good. Then you have the exact opposite in what Pena does. You have in Kyron Hudson, who's a bigger guy. I know he's listed at 6'1", but he plays pretty big. Out of USC, I like that you go and get these guys and put them around Drew Aller. Obviously, they have the great defense and all that stuff. What I don't like the new pressure that they have on them. This is the pressure that Penn State, off the top of my head, and maybe, with you being closer to the Big Ten, might have heard this or might have more recency bias on this, but I don't remember Penn State having this much pressure to win it all ever. I mean, maybe with Saquon Barkley a few years back, but I don't
even think the pressure was to win it all. I think the pressure was to make the playoff at that point.
Yeah, right. And this pressure is like, all right, you've made the playoff. You made it to the semifinal. Let's win it all. And I we'll see how they react to that. And then Drew Aller has no excuses this year. There were sometimes he looked completely incompetent, and there were sometimes he looked like, wow, he could be a first-round quarterback. He's really good. With the talent they've brought in, like I mentioned earlier, there's no more excuses. You have both your running backs coming back. There's no excuses in that, and that defense is just going to keep you in every game that you play in.
Yeah, I don't think that they've had this much pressure on them in a long time, because even the late 2010s, the whole goal was make the playoff, and then all bets are off. Because you're right, also in the prime of Nick Saban, it was hard to justify thinking that you were going to win it all when you were playing against the prime Nick Saban era.
Who's the only coach to beat Nick Saban twice in the playoff?
Did Kirby Smart beat him twice?
No,
so. Kirby Smart only beat him once.
Yeah, there's one coach who beat him twice. You know,
just Peterson.
I kind of don't know who it could be. Oh, it's Dabo Swinney. Oh, shit.
The one thing I do like about Penn State is the returning production and highlighting that running back room. Nick Singleton, Katron Allen. I mean, that should be the best running back room in the country this year.
Yeah.
They should. Nobody's going to win the Heisman off of this. And I don't think Drew Aller's going to win the Heisman. They don't have a difficult enough schedule. You look at that, unless Drew Aller goes and throws for like 4,500 yards this year, I don't think that they're going to be able to win the Heisman. You look at the schedule, nobody's even going to pay attention to their schedule until you get to the end of October.
Yeah.
They've got Nevada, FIU, Villanova. I mean, I guess, okay, they have Oregon at home on 27th. That's the first time people will actually tune in to see if Penn State's got it. And then you have a bunch of sleeping games. You got Northwestern, I guess, then you got at Iowa by Ohio State. If you get through that Oregon to Ohio State stretch, the season's done. Like, you don't have to worry again until the Big Ten championship game. Indiana at home, they'll win that game. Michigan State, they'll win that game. Nebraska at home, they'll win that game. Rutgers on the road, you'll win that game. The only part of the schedule that matters is from September 27th to October 1st. They play 5 games. 3 of them are going to be potentially difficult.
But if you're a Penn State player, shout out for being a 5-star listener, first off. Second, don't think that way.
Don't think that way. We get to think that way.
Jake's rat poison. You know what he's trying to do? He's trying to jinx you. So don't listen to him. He's trying to make sure that you lose.
The one thing I don't like, and this is nitpicking, is I think they lack a key defensive disruptor. Denai Dennis Sutton could be that guy. Zane Durant on the defensive line could be that guy. I'm not super sold that the linebackers are going to be superstars. I think they'll be fine. I'm not sure that there is like a linebacker kind of guy on that linebacking core right now.
I would disagree a little bit. I think if you're going to have the disruptor, there's 2 people. There's one, I think he's the second best safety in the country. And Zakee Wheatley, I think he is a phenomenal football player.
Shout out to his dad. His dad follows us.
Oh, hell yeah. So shout out, see, and not even, this is organic. This is not me being biased and trying to be a brown noser. So shout out to you. Zakee Wheatley, I think is the second best safety behind Caleb Downs. And I think he's a true disruptor. I think he can freaking play. And then I also, second best defensive tackle in the country behind Peter Woods, I think is Zane Durant. I think he is going to be a force on the inside. This is going to be the first time ever Penn State has a number 11. That's a true freshman who hasn't really proved anything. His dad proved a lot in LeVar Arrington. I did a little video on LeVar Arrington Jr. Go check it out on the Walk On Redshirts YouTube. Did some stuff with Landon Dingwell on that. So go check that out. But I disagree with you a little bit. Yes, I can see where you're coming from. You don't have that Micah Parsons, Abdul Carter type of guy. I don't think Denai Dennis Sutton moves the needle in terms of pass rushing ability. But when you look in the inside and you look up in the secondary, I think they've got some dudes.
Well, that does it for our Big Ten pre-preview. We'll be back again next week for the next conference. If you want to see the Big 12 or the SEC, let us know in the comments. We'll cater towards that for what you guys want to hear. Got 2 more to go through, and then we'll be jumping into the legitimate previews and start talking about the upcoming season. We are, 7 weeks away or 10 weeks away, I think, at this point. We're getting closer and closer by the day.
67 days. Fun fact, Father's Day was 69 days away. I was very excited about that.
Very nice. Very, very nice. So we'll be there soon enough. Make sure to go listen, rate the podcast. Go follow us on social media. Go follow Will on Walk On Moose. And we'll be back again next week for another pre-preview.
Yeah, shout out my Boston College fans out there.